Welcome to Bank on Her. I'm Makenzie Conklin, and I teach you how to make confidence a strength in and out of your business so you can build self-made wealth and unrealistic success on your terms. I've gone from defeatingly low self-worth to a multiple six-figure entrepreneur by learning how to bank on myself, and I believe you can do it too. Listen to find out how. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to part 2 of this episode of Bank on Her. I'm excited to keep diving into this, and just to give a little context in case you're listening to part 2 first instead of part 1 first, what we are talking about is the growth that I have had this year. And so to give context, I started my business around November 2020. I had been doing really well in November 2021 and most of that year, and come 2022, really, I started to struggle with mental health, anxiety, depression, and a lot of having my nervous system constantly activated and honestly immobilized a lot of the year due to trauma. And still in November 2022, I was able to have a $73,000 sales month, and I am looking at closing out the year at $250,000 in sales. And so today's episode is the second part of me sharing really important lessons that I had to learn to be able to go from really just struggling this year to still having such a successful year at the end of the day. And so let's dive into part 2 of this. So just to recap, part 1, the lessons that I covered are: number 1, you can fail, be depressed, live with high anxiety, and still make more money than your identity can keep up with. Lesson 2 was that identity work isn't always what we've been taught how it looks. Lesson 3 was your support system will be the make or break of your results. And the 4th lesson we covered was I had to learn to love myself, more of myself this year, even the unsavory parts. So let's dive into lesson 5. Lesson 5 is that I had to make peace with where I was at. And I think this is truly one of the most important lessons at every level. And I want to acknowledge, yes, I have already been very, very successful. And I also want to acknowledge I'm very privileged. And I think that plays into this story here. And so I was very privileged to have been able to go to a prestigious university, graduate with a fantastic salary, and make the money that I did at 22 all the way until I was 25 in corporate. And I left corporate when I was 25, which was August of 2021. And yet, even with that and making good money this year, for a while during the months of May to, I would probably say, August, that was when it was at least the worst. I really grappled with my income. And so I spent a majority of the year grappling with the fact that I still, even with $250,000 this year, am not paying myself as much as I used to make in corporate. And I found myself really comparing myself to my friends with the very sexy Silicon Valley salaries and lifestyles. What I had to do was make peace with where I was at and also learn that they're very incomparable. And so I want to talk about this separately. So let me talk about the incomparable part first. So I remember that one of my friends had talked to me about he was on the sales team, and if the company went public, that he was going to make hundreds of thousands of dollars just in stock value. And I remember being so torn. I don't know if torn is the right word. I think I was really hard on myself, actually. That's a better phrasing of it, that I knew I could be making that sort of money, and that I've been taking a pay cut, even with nearly $500,000 business over 2 years because of it. And I don't want to be like I was being a little bitch about it, but I was kind of being a little bitch about it because I didn't choose this for the money. I chose to become an entrepreneur, and specifically a confidence coach, because one, I'm just built for entrepreneurship, quite literally, but I did it for the impact. I remember I have a journal entry from somewhere in 2019 in one of my journals, and I remember sitting there being like, all I am doing is helping white men and banks become richer. And that felt bad. And I remember that so much of, just in general, so much of my experience before the age of 23 was very miserable because I didn't have confidence. And I'm going to talk about that in one of these points. And so I didn't start this for the money at all. And I knew I wouldn't make the money that I was making in corporate for quite some time. But I think I just got a little lost when in the depths of my depression, really. And so I had to recommit to the idea that corporate and entrepreneurship is incomparable. And so I had to because I've done it before, make peace with the idea that I am willing to sacrifice to build this dream. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I have some sort of note I saved to myself one time of all the things that I wrote about this. And I know my clients have really loved when I've shared it. So I'm just going to go find that note really quick and then read it off. Oh, I found it already. Okay. The things that I wrote down that really helped me make peace with where I was at was that these were the things. I am beyond willing to sacrifice to build this dream. I left the life I had to create exactly what I have now. A $300,000 salary is incomparable to a $300,000 cash business built on my own brilliance. The skill set for a six-figure salary with six-figure benefits is so incomparable to the skill set for a $500,000 business. I can work at someone else's company or I can build my own, and it's my choice. I do believe I'll be a multimillionaire, and I'm not in a rush to get there. It is so much safer to rely on my own earning potential than a mediocre male deciding my income. And that just really sitting with all of that really set me back to why I was doing this. And I think in any instance where you're comparing yourself to anyone, you're going to find yourself even just a smidge more miserable. And so I really had to tap back in to why I started this in the first place. And I just think that helped me so tremendously. And I remember thinking about my friend who was making so much money on a sales team. I remember one day, I didn't ever say this to him, but I told my entrepreneurial friends where it was like, you're on a sales team, I am the sales team. And just things like that made me feel so much better. And remembering that I'm like, personally for me, I am not in this for the money. I haven't been. And so, and I would never go back to the life I had. You couldn't pay me to go back to the life that I had or the person I was. And reconnecting to that was so helpful. The other thing with this lesson that I really want to speak to is that, again, you have to make peace with wherever you're at. If your income is zero right now as an entrepreneur, if your income isn't where you want, if it's not necessarily covering your bills, if it's just not where you thought you'd be right now, I don't care. You have to make peace with that again. You just have to. And so something that I did that was so powerful for me, and let me say too, again, I'm very privileged and I'm very successful in my business. I've worked very hard in my business to get myself to a place where I can afford to live in San Francisco. I might not have all the benefits that I used to have, right? But I've worked so hard to get here, and I had to fall in love with my income again, even if less. I had to fall in love with it, even if I didn't like it. It's one of the most important lessons of this year. I had to fall in love with everything that number was. I had to fall, and when I'm talking about this, I'm very specifically talking about how much I pay myself per month. I also had to make peace with, I could pay myself more, but I choose to pour so much back into my business. But I think falling in love with wherever you're at is really important. I think it's the most important thing. And I have always said that the number one most important thing that I did my first year, that where I created I think it was like multiple six figures the first year around there, was that I just had to be so in love with the fact that I was an entrepreneur now, and just reveling in that identity was so important for me. And it's almost a different flavor of it the second year. I just had to be in love with where I was at and all the beautiful things that came with it, like scaling my business and meeting new friends and all the clients I got to support and the freedom in my day. I just had to fall in love with the income level and everything that it did give me. And I think if every single person can fall in love with their income level and just really romanticize the hell out of it, you'll be able to make more because of how you act from a place of love and making peace with it. And so that was so, so huge for me. Okay, I think we're on number 6. This one's shorter. 6th lesson is that I really sat with the idea that the only reason I would ever not create what I wanted is for one of 2 reasons. Number 1, I gave up too soon. Number 2, I didn't coach myself hard enough. And since making that realization, I have achieved so much bigger, so much better, with so much more peace. I want more women to exist with this understanding. The only reason you will ever not get what you want is because you gave up too soon or you didn't coach yourself to get there. And so because of that, I coach myself so much harder. There is no thought. If I catch a thought that is unsupportive to the results and growth that I want, I change it. I do not let it sit there. And that's a whole other podcast episode in itself. But I think it's so important that whoever you are listening, whatever you want, if you don't give up and if you coach yourself, you can absolutely get there. And I fully believe that. Lesson 7 is that it is safe to fail. This one's really tough. No one's going to like me for this one. It's very tough to feel safe in our bodies, in who we are. And when I say in our bodies, I mean somatically. In our bodies and who we are, and with what will happen to us in the future when we face failure. And entrepreneurship is just so tough. It is not for the faint of heart. It will test your mental health, your nervous system, your confidence, your relationship with money, yourself, and your passions. And it's really hard to feel safe when we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if we'll succeed. All of this when we're facing failure. And so something that I really sat with in the last quarter is feeling safe no matter the results. The reason that I was able to have a $73,000 sales month is because I fully felt safe in the idea that even if I didn't make a single penny, I would be okay. I'd have my own back. I'd figure it out. It wasn't going to be a problem. And because I felt so safe in my nervous system, in my body, in my brain, with my thoughts, with having my own back and my self-trust, I was able to create that. And so something I work a lot on with my clients is somatic safety, or rather feeling safe with the sensations in your body. And so also with feeling safe in who you are and your experiences and all of that, so that you can go further. What I will say, though, is it's super common that if we are feeling, and I mean, any emotion will have different sensations for different people, but let's say you have anxiety in your chest, right? Rather than ignoring that or trying to bypass it or trying to get out of it as fast as possible, just feeling safe in the sensation of that has been so important for me this year. And it's really helped me develop the skill that I am safe no matter what happens, no matter what I do, and that I will love myself and be kind to myself and have my own back through all of it. So that's been so important. Also, it's raining. So I feel like this is a noisy episode, but that's okay. You might not be able to hear it. And so this skill just took me so far in the last few months. And so being able to go from, as I described in part 1, a very activated state with my nervous system. So just to paint more of a picture, a lot of 2022, because of past trauma being very triggered for me, I would go from anywhere from being in high state panic attacks and hyperventilating and just really feeling unsafe in my surroundings and in my body, to my body just totally shutting down. Like I would lay on the floor and I wouldn't move for hours, and it felt like I couldn't even muster up any sort of emotional reaction or response from anyone. And so I was just bouncing back between these very high and low activation states. And so being able to go from months of that at a time and feeling unsafe to feeling very whole and safe and regulated despite circumstances or results has just been so life-changing to yes, my income, right? I've created so much this year, even with all of that, but really just life-changing to me and how I move through the world. And lesson 8, my confidence makes me so much money. I think just in general, the lesson is confidence will make you so much money, and it really can for you too. So confidence has many equally valid interpretations. To me, it's regarding yourself with such respect and worth and power that you really feel at home and in love with yourself. And when I say at home and in love with yourself, I really mean the good parts, the quirky parts, the unconventional parts, the parts you've been in battle with for decades. You existing as yourself to such a degree that it's felt by all. And I think that level of confidence is so admired and it is so rare. But more importantly, it is learned. This level of confidence that has made me so much money and that has helped me so much was not always me. And I think that's so important for people to know. I've battled with eating disorders and abuse and sexual harassment, often related to the crippling insecurity that I had. And what I'll say is obviously other people were involved in some of those things, but it also had to do, from my interpretation, with the crippling insecurity that I had. And so that was me for most of my life. And so I am often still in awe of what people reflect back to me about myself now, of how inspiring and strong I am, or how effortlessly I help other people see themselves and their possibilities differently. And I just want you to know that it's learned. You can learn it too. I really, with all these lessons, these 8 lessons, confidence has just been the thing that has undermined all of it, and the ability to still believe in myself and love myself and have my own back and just be my number one best cheerleader through all of this. And so again, to close out these 8 lessons, I'm still working on the identity work and the embodiment almost in my body and feeling safe in it too, of like I've created a quarter of what will be $250,000 this year, while still struggling, while still having depression, while still being, having anxiety and trauma and confidence. They all coexist within me, and making peace with all of that, being at home with all of that, loving myself for all of that is what allowed me to still have so many good things happen this year and such big success. And so I really want you to know that whoever you are, whatever level you're at, whether it's at your career or your business, you can apply these 8 lessons and it will take you so far. It will take you so far. Thanks for listening. And if you haven't already, we might say this in the outro by now. It's okay. If you haven't already, we would love if you would leave a review, rate the podcast, leave a comment on iTunes, Spotify, or any listening platform that you have. And we'll say this in the outro for sure, but we are open for one-to-one coaching right now. I am looking to take on 3 more private clients in the new year and to just help you become so much more unlimited with who you are, with what you're capable of, with what you earn, and just get your life so much richer and get you earning and existing so much more confidently. Thanks for listening, and go bank on yourself. Hey, I have really big news. I will be accepting only 3 private clients during the month of December. So if you are a high-achieving woman who wants to exist and earn more confidently, come apply to work with me. My private clients regularly become breadwinners, move abroad, double their income, become multiple 6-figure earners, buy the designer bags, chop off their hair, have it all, and just improve every area of their life through confidence. We'd love to have you be one of these 3 women who makes her life so much richer in the next few months. You can go ahead and head to my show notes to get the link to apply. And thank you for listening to Bank on Her.